Welcome to Sabbath Collective. We're a community of people interested in celebrating the Sabbath and pursuing God through an ancient Hebraic worldview of Scripture. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Good to see you. We have been going through and exploring the hows and the whys of letting go. And oftentimes people in spiritual communities talk of letting go and how we have to live in a constant state of releasing. And I agree, that's very important. But there's also the other side of that spiritual and mental health coin, which is holding on. There are times, hey Phoebe, great to see you. Hope things are well in Cali. There are times when it is very important and we need to let go. And then there are times when we need to hold on. And tonight we'll explore holding on to your values. So, hey Evelyn, great to see you. Shabbat Shalom. Good to have you with us from New York. So, a few years ago, I did some counseling with a gentleman who was working in his dream job. He was not only miserable, but self-destructive. And when he started counseling with me, he spoke of his stress and his burnout as the big problem. But when we dug a bit deeper, it became obvious that he was really not in alignment with the things that he had to do to get to and to remain in his dream position. When he would tell me job stories, I would kind of just casually ask him how he felt when he had to fill in the blank. And he would usually say, well, that's just part of it. And by the way, people have jobs because of what I do. And he was just fiercely defensive of this dream job that he had. And I finally just said, okay, let's not defend the job. It's not about the job. It's about you doing the job. And just like that, there was an awakening with him. Concerning pursuing your dreams, a great operating system with this is let your values shape your dreams and inform your decisions. Hey Sissy, good to see you. Let your values, no one else's values, yours, shape your dreams and inform your decisions. And in fact, we make decisions all the time in our dreams. We're constantly making decisions. Core values is a term thrown around a lot these days. But let me just kind of boil it down into what I'm talking about when I talk about this, about your values. Your core is the essence of your inner self, right? And your values are your beliefs. They're your principles. They're the ideals you treasure that are in your heart and as well as in your mind. And they reflect what matters most to you in your life. So let's take a look at the words of Yeshua, and we're going to kind of dig a little deeper here. He said, and we read in Matthew 16:26, what good will it do someone if he gains, and that is the Greek word kardaino, the whole world, but forfeits zimao, his life? So the question is, what good will it do someone if he gains the whole world, but forfeits his life? Now, let me just break this down from a Hebraic perspective of what this means here. Gains, the Greek word, is a verb that comes from the noun kirdos, and it means profit, winning, or acquisition. And forfeits means to affect with damage or to sustain damage. So let me just paraphrase this verse, this question that Yeshua was asking. What good will it do someone if they win, succeed, acquire everything, but in the process, it damages their life? And this is what we're going to look at tonight. This is as simple as living outside of our own values damages us. And it isn't until we understand and connect to what we actually value, that we're able to start to see that some decisions we have made on the road to fulfilling our dreams may not be conducive to a fulfilling life. Now, if you felt this or experienced this, give me a thumbs up. Hey, Randall, good to see you. Shabbat Shalom. I've been praying for you all week, Randall. Love you. Give me a thumbs up if you've experienced this. Maybe, for instance, the times were different when we thought about what we wanted, what our vision, what our dream was. Maybe we were different. Maybe it was just as simple as we assimilated our culture's vision or dreams for us, or our family's visions and dreams for us. But oftentimes, even when they're completely our dreams and visions, things change. They shift, they evolve. And we find ourselves slowly changing with them, and all of a sudden living outside of what we truly believe. Our situation can very slowly morph into something else. So I want to give you an example of this. I knew a young woman of color who a couple years ago worked very, very hard. Her dream was to be an executive assistant, and I'm talking about a very high level, high paying executive assistant to, some sort of executive in a big company somewhere. And she worked very hard. She worked her way up. She had 2 master's degrees. She understood efficiency management. I mean, she was really just the total package. And in this corporate world, she was a rarity. A young woman of color was a rarity in this particular venue she was in. And so she made it. She was an assistant to the vice president of a very powerful global company. And it was her dream job. And she just nailed it. She was succeeding. She was doing so well. But gradually, over time, she also started to slip into, because her boss kind of put this on her, becoming his personal assistant. Now, I think most of us know an executive, assistant is different. An executive person is a different role than a personal assistant, okay? So she began to slide into that. And at first she was offended. And she thought, I worked very hard for this position. This doesn't feel right for me. But again, it was her dream job. And she noticed other executive decisions sometimes ran personal errands. And it all got kind of muddy and gray. Gradually, first it was his dry cleaning. Then it was purchasing gifts for him. Then it was running errands like buying his son's cupcakes for his birthday at school. Then it was picking his kids up from their private school and babysitting them until the wife got home. Then it became lying to his boss's wife to cover up affairs that her boss was having. And finally, she talked to me about that she had to drive out to the beach in Long Island to clean the house after his boss had his rendezvous with his mistress there, including washing the bedding. Okay. The dream job changed, and it violated her integrity at every turn. And here's the thing with change. We have to understand, the Dalai Lama said it best, open your arms to change, but don't let go of your values. Open your arms to change, but don't let go of your values. And this is the thing. Most of the time, we let go of our values very slowly. We don't realize it. A thing pushes against a belief or a conviction or our own personal integrity or something that we know is dishonoring to us and we just shouldn't do. And it's good to be flexible. It's good not to be rigid. It's good even to extend grace. But then oftentimes it becomes more and more unclear. Those boundaries get pushed more and more. And all of a sudden, we find ourselves letting go of our values. And when this young, brilliant woman quit, she was so mad at herself because she said, Pastor Donna, when she was talking to me, all of a sudden I just realized that I was doing things that if he'd have hit me with all those things from the beginning, I would have walked. But because it was one thing at a time, all of a sudden I just found myself in this position. And that's actually more of the reality of what we do. Periodically, we need to take an inventory of how things are functioning in our lives. And we need to evaluate as if it's the first time you're ever seeing it. So in other words, what we have to do is when we're doing a job or whatever it is that we're evaluating, we need to sort of step back and then come and look at it as if we never saw it before. And look at everything that we do and ask ourselves this question: is this still working in my life? James 1:8 puts it like this, and this is a really good verse, one most of us know. Because he is double-minded, and that's the Greek word dipsychos, and it means wavering, uncertain, and vacillating. Literally, it means two-souled. Because he is double-minded, he is unstable, and that word means inconstant or restless. So unstable is not the you that you can trust, right? You're restless and you're inconstant in all of his or her ways. And this is to have two souls kind of put you in that place of being wavering, uncertain, vacillating. And so therefore, you are not reliable and you're restless. Have you ever felt that way in a position and you just kind of slid into it? If your dreams and goals are not in alignment with your values, it'll be very difficult to achieve them as you'll be fighting this internal battle. Now, I knew a young man of color, and most of you know this story about him, and I'm not going to say his name because I just don't want to, but most of you know this, and he said it personally, but he got a writing job, and he just thought, well, this is just going to be unbelievable because I can write what I want to say. I can talk about social justice issues. And now I have this platform. And we were all so thrilled for him. Like, yes, you're an amazing writer. Your words are going to even hit more people. And then he found in this job that there was a lot of racist overtones. Not just even overtones. There was a lot of racist stuff that was being said. And it was a really bad leadership structure. And little by little, right, he found his personal integrity was being threatened and compromised. And soon we were talking about him leaving this job. Because again, even though it was not the dream job for him, but certainly a dream job on the way to dream jobs, he realized, I can't stay here. This violates my values. And when we have that happen, it can be devastating. We can be confused. We can think, well, aren't I grateful? Am I being too sensitive? And this is why we really step back and look at it. If your dreams and goals are not in alignment with your values, it'll be very difficult to achieve them as you'll be fighting this internal battle. Or if you do achieve them, you'll most likely experience inner conflict and won't feel fulfilled when you get them. A dream not aligned with a value will often produce sabotage. Sometimes it's not just the situation that changes, it's us that change. Our values shift and they grow. And we need to make changes in our lives when that happens. Because something may have worked for us before, but it's not so much working now for us. And what we thought, oh my gosh, when I get that, it's everything I've ever wanted, and it challenges our values. We need to be willing to step away from it and evaluate it. Have you ever felt that in your own lives? And if so, give me a thumbs up, but also maybe if you don't mind sharing, if it was a job or maybe it was a relationship, maybe it was a romantic relationship with someone and you thought, oh, this is the person of my dreams. And then when you got it, not so much. It was an assault on your values. Hey, Evangelina, good to see you, hon. Shabbat shalom. So it's not just about where you're going. It's about who you are. If your behaviors don't align with your values, one of them will change. Let's just read that one more time, okay? It's not just about where you're going, it's about who you are. So in other words, what your values are, who you are. If your behaviors don't align with your values, one of them will change. In other words, you'll either change your values or you'll change your behaviors. But we can't have this dissonance between, we can't be double souled, right? Eventually there's going to be a split there. Phoebe, I see that thumb. Actually, I think Phoebe kind of went through this with a faith community in her own walk, which she's kind of shared with us as a group, where she all of a sudden realized, I thought this was it, and now not so much. It's violating my own values. And it's this process of seeing it, of accepting it, and then dealing with it. And by the way, it's not easy when you thought what you had is what you wanted. The further your dreams are from your core values, the more unrest and inner chaos you will experience. Sooner or later, the dissonance in your life will cause a breaking down, and whether that's physical issues or emotional issues. So there's a really good book out, I think I've talked about it before, called The Body Keeps the Score. And it's by a medical doctor and just a brilliant person. But basically what he's talking about in all of the studies that he's done is when there's not something directly at fault, like an underlying disease or an injury, but there's all these aches and pains, oftentimes we manifest a psychological and spiritual issue in our bodies. And that will happen when you're living a life that doesn't line up with your own values. You can't literally be two-souled. It doesn't work. You'll either change your values or you change your behaviors, but you can't stay in this place of in between the two of them. Spot on, Phoebe's saying. Yeah. So again, knowing your own values, your own motivations. And by the way, what is it, if you feel comfortable sharing this with the group, what do you often think when you realize that something is really countering your values? Maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's a job, it could be anything. Maybe it's something that you worked very hard to buy and then you realize you don't want it, whatever it is. What pops into your head when you think of saying, this isn't working, I've got to change it, I've got to get it out of your life, out of my life? What pops in there right away? So the first step in being able to purposely live out a dream that matters to you is knowing your own values, because those are going to be your motivations. So let's look at Paul, who was a really well-respected and prosperous Pharisee. Now, we Western Christians, who I don't like to identify with that bunch, but Western Christians oftentimes talk about Pharisees as that they were some satanic cult, right? They were really bad and Yeshua hated them. But that's not at all what this was. So this was, Pharisees were a sect of Judaism. A sect is a group that are Jews, that are practicing Jews. And Pharisees had a smaller group even than the larger group. And the larger group was, we have to obey all the laws. We have to be very careful. And we have to put up fences around our biblical laws of protection. So in other words, if you can only walk 10 steps on the Sabbath, We're going to tell you can only walk 5 in case you take real big steps and violate the Sabbath rules, right? So they were extra careful because they didn't want to experience judgments because of sin. And they also wanted for God to send the Messiah to the earth to unite them as a people and to raise up Israel and to become the priest and king of Israel, of which the whole world would come to a relationship with God. Okay? Now, they did not recognize that Yeshua was the Messiah. They didn't recognize that. So they were waiting. And they were trying to wait being as best followers of God as they could be. Within that sect was a smaller sect of Pharisees that really became more about a religious nationalism. Okay? Ooh, that sounds familiar. So the religious nationalism got connected with faith practices. And that nationalism then became a religious practice. And that's when they broke all kinds of biblical laws in order to protect their religious rights and practices. Okay? Now, this is what Paul was a part of, the smaller sect within the larger group of Pharisees. Are you with me so far? But he was very well respected. He had a lot of things. He had a lot of comfortable things. He was a religious leader. He studied all the time. I mean, the dude was pretty smart, right? We can say that. He studied all the time. Everyone respected his knowledge. And he hunted down followers of Yeshua and wanted to either put them in jail or kill them or get them out because he felt like they threatened the whole God sending the Messiah to unite and restore Israel. Okay? Are you with me? He had an awakening, however, on the way to murder people. He had an awakening and he realized who the Messiah was, and he realized what he was doing to the followers. He was persecuting Yeshua's followers and thus persecuting Yeshua himself. As a result, when he realized this because of a revelation, he radically alters his life, right? Now he has a different value system, okay? He has a different belief system. He radically alters his life. He gives up everything, all the respect he had, everything he had. He gives up everything, and consequently, he's suffering a great deal in his life. But he was completely joy-filled, wholeheartedly fulfilled with his walk. And he writes this: I consider everything a disadvantage in comparison with the supreme value of knowing the Messiah Yeshua as my Lord. It was because of him that I gave up everything. You see that? He's not in dissonance now, right? He's not double-souled, okay? He's not inconstant or restless. He is one track. He is focused because he is living out of his values. I gave up everything and regard it all as garbage in order to gain the Messiah. Now, this is what single-mindedness looks like as opposed to double-mindedness. This is what one-soulness looks like as opposed to two-souled, right? It's a person that has passion and joy and peace and conviction and stability, even when the world's kind of going upside down and you find yourself in prison and not enough to eat and getting whipped and having people hate you and having to leave town quick. Even when all that happens, even when you get accused of things you didn't do, even if you are facing death, literally, he had no doubts. And this is what it really looks like to fulfill a vision that's deeply rooted in our value system. He was fully connected to his path and living out of his values. Sometimes we read these verses and we don't really connect to what they mean. Paul really suffered a lot, okay? And he talked about it. But no doubts, no second thoughts, fully committed to the path. because everything he did was out of a deep core belief. Yeshua spoke about the kingdom as our value and the way we make choices from that value. And one of the places he spoke about it, he said the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field. A man found it, hid it again, then in great joy went and sold everything he owned and bought that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant on the lookout for fine pearls. On finding one very valuable pearl, he went away, sold everything he owned, and bought it. And again, these are parables that are talking about people that recognize the value of what they're looking at. So in other words, their values are in alignment with selling everything they have and buying it, okay? Because to them, it's their values. Are you with me with that? These are stories of people who are living out of their own values and are willing to do or pay whatever it takes. So, have you thought lately about what your values are? When I do marriage counseling, I always have people write down their personal values that they came into the relationship with, and then their family values or their partner values. What are our partner values? What are our family values? And put them somewhere in their house and live out of them so that everything is lived through that. I'm going to give you an example. One of our personal family values is fun. It just is very important to us to have fun. And so as a family, we always have. We always laugh. We always joke. We laugh loud. We laugh big. And we have fun. Another family value that we have is to be our authentic self. We don't get pressured into doing things that we're not in alignment with, right? We kind of connect to our true self and we do that. And if the rest of the family wants to do something else, cool, no pressure, no problem. Go ahead, you do your thing, I'm going to do my thing. No guilt, right? So and I have a couple more too, but these are the ways that you kind of view what happens through your values. So have you written down your personal values lately? It's an important thing to do because they may have changed since you've thought about them 10 years ago. Have you thought about your decision through their eyes? In other words, if one of your values, let's say, is honor, you want to be treated with honor and you want to treat other people with honor. But yet some of the things that you maybe are doing at work or doing in your own family are not honor. Maybe you're manipulating children to try to get them to do what you want them to do, but manipulation is not honor, is it? So therefore you're going against your own values and you've become too sold. Some people have values like freedom, some adventure, family, community, faith, simplicity, honor, love, peace, transparency. I like Neil deGrasse Tyson's quote. He says, "For me, I am driven by two main philosophies. Know more today about the world than I knew yesterday." Okay, that's a cool one. Know more today about the world than I knew yesterday. That's his personal value. And the second, lessen the suffering of others. And then the quote goes on, "You'd be surprised how far that gets you." Those are just two great values, right? No more today than the world than I knew yesterday, and lessen the suffering of others. Two great values. So everything he does, he's going to view out of those values. It's very simple, right? To make sure that we're not becoming separated, becoming split, becoming two souls. So we're going to ask ourselves these questions, okay? And I'm going to post them so you can see them. Is my dream aligned with my core values? So you're going to ask this about what you're doing as far as your dreams are concerned. Is my dream aligned with my core values? Okay, let me see you while I talk about this one. Let's say you want to move to the mountains and live off grid, okay? You want to grow your own crops. You want to raise your own animals for food. Well, here's a reality check. You're going to have to kill those animals that you took care of in order to eat them, okay? So that can be your dream, to live off grid, to go into the mountains, to raise your own food, to grow your own crops and all of that. But if you can't wrap your brain around the fact that you or maybe somebody else who you can split the food with are going to have to slaughter the animals, that dream isn't going to work for you, is it? Right? Maybe you'll do that and be a vegetarian, but not so much if you don't accept the fact that animals are going to have to give their life for you to eat them. Okay? So again, this is what happens when we don't connect fully to the dream. Is my dream aligned with my core values? Number 2, what does the dream require from me in order to achieve it? And again, this would be the slaughtering of the animals, right? In order to eat the animals, you have to slaughter the animals, right? Really look down the road of your dream and ask yourself what it requires of you. Maybe even talk to people that are farther down that road than you are right now and ask them what they had to do to get there and what they have to do to stay there. And that way you can absolutely know, not everything, but for the most part, what the dream requires of you in order to be able to achieve it. A lot of people have dreams and have no idea what it takes. Just talking about one of the things that I do. I mean, I really do 2 things mainly. I teach and I counsel people, right? Let's just take one of the things that I do, which is teach. Over the years, I had a lot of people come to me and say, I really want to be a teacher like you. I want to teach. How do you teach? And I'll tell them, I read every day. I never stop learning. I can spend 5 hours researching one thought, and every half hour can take me 20 or 30 hours to prepare for one half-hour teaching. Do you still want to teach? And on top of that, the Bible says that people that teach have a stricter judgment, which means when I teach something and it is not God's heart, and it is not leading people to live lives that are good and pure and loving and peaceful and all of that, if I lead somebody off the path because of my teaching, because either I'm a jerk or I'm prideful or I don't take the time to understand what I'm teaching, I have to pay for that. I can't just be, oh, sorry, that's my bad. There's a judgment for that. So all of that is involved in teaching. So we have to understand what the dream requires, okay? Because we have to pay that price. And for most dreams, it's constant paying a price. Aaron is not watching tonight, but if he is, I'm going to use him as an example. I'm pretty sure that all of COVID time, Aaron was not letting his art slip away. He was probably watching people to inspire him. He was probably doing things to keep his body in shape as much as he could in that time, right? And you do need to take into consideration that during the time of COVID, baking need to happen. So there's cookies involved, okay? Enough said. But for the most part, I'm sure Aaron realized that even though I'm not dancing, I still need to stay connected to my art. We all do. So again, number 2, what does this dream require from me in order to achieve it? And number 3, will I be my true self if I do these things? So what the dream requires from you, if you do them, will you be living in your own integrity? will you be your true self? This is a really important thought. Values are a magnet. So your values are a magnet, okay? They attract what is aligned with them, and they attract what will challenge them. Read that one more time. Values, your values, are a magnet. They attract what is aligned with them, meaning when you have your values and you know what they are, right? There's a spiritual energy to those values, and you will attract like-minded people or like situations or like opportunities. You will have opportunities to do your values, right? If one of your values is kindness, you will attract things that give you opportunities to be kind. You will attract other people that will be kind to you, and you will be kind to them, right? Like attracts like, and we know that in the physical realm, and it's true in the spiritual realm. They attract what is aligned with them, and values will attract what will challenge them. So, one of your values is kindness. You can absolutely rest assured that the biggest jerk on the planet will be sitting on the plane seat next to you for a 5-hour ride. Promise you. Take that to the bank, okay? Values, they attract, like attracts like, and they also attract things that will challenge them. And that's just that concept of all things need to be refined, they need to be challenged. Whether it's hormesis in our body, right? That's how we grow muscle. That's how wine vineyards are good. They're challenged. There's a drought. The roots go deeper. We know all that. Everywhere we look at the world, and even in our own physical bodies, this is a spiritual principle. It's a design by Yahweh. We will be attracting things that are like-minded, and we will be attracting things that will challenge our values, which is why we always need to connect with assessing what we're doing. Does that make sense? Evelyn says, love the breakdown of our dreams. Oh, my pleasure, Evelyn. So we are going to close our time with the lighting of the Shavuos candles. Traditionally, the mothers of the home light the candles, which connects us to the Sabbath light of peace, of joy, and of unity. And then she encircles the candles with her hands 3 times as a gesture that welcomes in the Sabbath. The Lord is our light and our salvation. May his light be felt in this space as the enlightenment of truth and the radiance of joy. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.